Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big, but this is a really big one because we have our newly elected state senator with us today. It's a pleasure to welcome Mary Beth Carozza. Welcome.
It's great to be back, and it's been a whirlwind since Election Day. I'm so grateful for our team. It was a total team effort, a shared victory, and it was exciting as it was building in all three counties, Wycomico, Somerset, and Worcester County, and all the municipalities across the district, and just being out there and seeing it build, the support for Governor Hogan, the support for my candidacy for state senate. So since Election Day, though, it's been nonstop. So whenever the campaign became a little tense, whether it was preparing for debates or a mailer had come in attacking you, the approach I took was, I just need to be out with people. So I would talk to my team and say, look, I'm going out and I'm doing what I do best. I'm going door to door. I'm talking directly to people with no filters, no social media, no mailers in between us. And that's when I knew it was continuing to build. So I pretty much put the naysayers at bay,
Right.
and stayed out with the people and just kept pulling more people in. We had so many people involved in the campaign. You know, we had first-time students involved, knocking on doors. We had, some senior citizens out there who, when we asked them if they wanted to make phone calls, some actually said, no, we'd rather be out knocking doors with you. It was that type of energy and enthusiasm in the campaign. And just a total team effort. So very grateful and really want everyone to know it's a shared victory. And it puts me in a position of strength to represent this area. So I can go out with confidence and, say that we have our team across the three counties. And, when we take positions, it's truly representative of the district.
Great. Now, and you might disagree, and I wouldn't blame you if you would, but in my lifetime, it's been rare that you really have a tough decision to make about who to vote for. And in your race, the candidates were both very qualified, had a lot of appeal in both directions. It was a tough decision for a lot of people. How did that make running for the office different?
I think that you're right as far as a lot of the constituents knew both of us, and some of them knew Jim Mathias going back to when he was the popular mayor of Ocean City. So there were personal friendships and relationships there that made this race maybe a little bit more difficult for some voters. What I tried to do was just take the personal aspects out of it and say, look at this district at this point in time. This is why I am more representative of this district, whether it was my support for small businesses, for the poultry industry, for what I was doing with the commercial fishing industry, for my work with veterans, that at this point in time in this district, I am far more representative of it. And I think that's when people saw that if you could take those personal aspects, yes, they might like this person, but we're talking about this position and this vote at this point in time. So I believe that looking at it from that standpoint and putting out, here are the differences between us, and here is why at this point in time I'm more representative of this district. That's the way the support continued to build.
Right. And you turf Somerset County, which you had not had to get votes in before, all of Worcester. You even won Somerset County.
So it came very close. It was, I think, 6 votes shy. But when I,
Oh, I thought you had,
but given
election night you were up by 11, so
but-
maybe in the recount you were down by 6. Okay.
But given the fact that I had not represented that
Right.
area at all,
And it's a heavily Democratic voting area.
it is, and I spent a lot of time there. Again, so much of that was on the ground. So I had Mr. George Talls from Crisfield taking me around, organizing a boat trip over to Smith Island and spending time over there, going into the local businesses, truly listening to the challenges of the seafood processors. And I think that had such a positive impact on how I would approach the issues. You start by listening, you narrow in on the challenges, then you see if there's a consensus on the best way to approach those challenges. And as a result of the follow-up since the election, people asked me, well, what did you do the next day after election? Did you sleep in? And I said, no, I did not. I said, I embarked on a 12-hour, 3-county
Yes, you did.
thank you impromptu tour that started in Ocean City to the Grace Parker breakfast to
Where, I'm told, you received a standing ovation.
it was very humbling, very welcoming. Then scooted over to Ocean Pines, came over to Salisbury, did some thank you visits over here, went down to Somerset County, went to Deal Island, went to Winona, went to Crisfield, and when I walked into one of the general stores on the day after the election, the woman behind the counter popped up almost like, "What are you doing here?" And I just said, "I'm here to say thank you." So that pace continued. Then from there, we went on to all the thank you Christmas parades. And we participated in 7 or 8 Christmas parades, ranging from, Ocean City to Crisfield to Salisbury, parades in all 3 counties. And it was just an opportunity for the volunteers wanted to be back out there, and they were holding thank you banners just to be in the Christmas spirit, but also an opportunity to show appreciation.
How hard did you have to work in this last election?
So a lot of people don't realize, because most people don't really tune in until you're closer to election day, but this started well over a year. And when I say well over a year, is I participated in a low-key listening visit in the summer of 2017. That was the time when I was being encouraged to consider running for state senate. And I've been so humbled to represent District 38C. I'm the first person in history to represent it. Great district, parts of Wycomico and Worcester counties. And I felt that I had worked that district very hard and was probably in line to be reelected for that position. So to be encouraged to run for a bigger office with more territory and to give up a position where I felt I was already making a difference, I wanted to make sure the support would be there. So I went around and I met with the small business owners, I met with seniors, I met with veterans, I met with our farmers, met with our healthcare providers, our commercial fishing industry, all of our constituencies. Really wanted to know, number one, what they expected in a state senator, and 2, that if I were to make the decision, would the support be there? In other words, you make the decision and you turn around and there's people actually behind you. And as I continued to make those visits, my confidence grew. And so with a lot of prayer, consultation with my family, a key group of advisors, I felt that the decision was the right one to run for state senate. So all of that was done even before the official announcement. The official announcement was made a year out. Governor Hogan came down for my announcement at Ocean City Elementary School.
It was a great event, it really was.
And we came out strong.
Yeah.
We came out really strong.
If there was any doubt about what the support was going to be like for you, that event washed it away because everybody was there.
It was a good cross-section.
And people from Salisbury.
Somerset County, Salisbury, all parts of Worcester. It was a great cross-section of support.
And the weather was a terrible day.
We had originally planned to have it outside,
right.
But we're flexible, and we did take the event inside.
But people showed up, is my point. Yeah.
They really did.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, when my parents were driving to Ocean City Elementary School, they were making the left-hand turn onto Keyser Point Road, and they saw this line of vehicles ahead of them. And my mom was like, there seems to be a lot of traffic at this point of time, a Sunday in November. And then it occurred to them that they might be going to the event with me. So it was a very much of a highlight of a day for the campaign.
Yeah. Oh, it was packed. So you just had your orientation, I understand. You went up, you saw your desk?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
So we're getting there. Where we are right now is actually had my first official visit with President Miller, and that went very well. Bottom line is the campaign's behind us, and he was very welcoming and also made a point to say that he would work with me, with the shore community, on protecting the poultry industry. And the reason I believe that came out right out of the box early on was the fact that there is a new chairman of the Senate Environment, Health, and Education Committee. I've been appointed to that committee, which is a great committee for the shore when you think about, the cross-section of issues.
Sure.
Environment, health, education, also local government, also veterans. So I'm very excited about that. It's wonderful for the district. But the fact that the poultry industry came up, in the beginning of our conversation was an excellent sign that President Miller recognizes and appreciates that the poultry industry is an economic driver, not just for the shore, but for the entire state of Maryland, and that when there are proposals that affect the poultry industry, that our farmers and our poultry industry have to be at the table from the very beginning. And so that was very reassuring. Also the benefit of the new member orientation is I'm meeting my colleagues that are coming in the same class.
Right.
And I'm meeting the other colleagues on the committee. I'm meeting the other new senators. So that's an excellent way just to get to know each other. So when your issues do come up, there's a level of trust that you can go and say, here's how this issue is affecting the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And they can also let me know why they might be pushing for a certain position, why this particular issue is important to their district. So I made a point to participate in both the new member orientation and also the bus tour that they put together for the new members, both on the House and the Senate side.
Right. And you're up there with the guy who's succeeding you in 38th C, Wayne Hartman.
And let me say a little bit about Wayne Hartman. Wayne Hartman came to me when he first ran. Of course, the race there was the primary. And he came to me and he said, number one, he said, I respect the job that you've done as delegate. And I've made the decision to run for delegate. And I want to support Governor Hogan and I want to support you. What can I do? So I looked him straight in the eye and I said, okay, I said, if you're serious about being a team player, I said, we'd appreciate it when you're going door to door in Ocean Pines and other parts of the district that you carry Governor Hogan's and my material and that you make a point to say that you will be a team player, you will work with us. And he did that. I know that because he ran out of my literature and would come back and ask for more literature and ask for more yard signs. And what that allowed me to do, since he was willing to work District 38C on my behalf and on Governor Hogan's behalf, it allowed me to focus in the new areas that I didn't represent yet. Allowed me to go to Crisfield and Princess Anne and Deal Island and to Fruitland and to Delmar and to parts of Salisbury that I didn't represent yet. And that's where I focused my initial door-to-door and spent a lot of time not only throughout the campaign, but especially in the beginning when I started to do the introductions in those areas that I was not, I was just not that well known in those areas. And the polls showed it in the beginning, and I knew the areas I needed to work. So, again, the fact that after Wayne Hartman won the primary, instead of being done, like, okay, my race is done and I really don't have much of a general election, I can basically take it easy. What he did is he came back and said, where can I be helpful to you now? And Wayne Hartman and my dad and Alan Beers were the sign warriors. They went up and they put the signs up all over the district, not just in 38C. And that meant a lot because it took pressure that I didn't have to spend my personal time as a candidate focused on material things like signs.
Right.
I could spend my time going door to door, going to events, going to those areas I didn't represent yet. So I'm very grateful for that. And as a result, I've made a point to, in my own way, give guidance to Wayne after he won the primary. Just to be clear, I did not officially endorse, but when somebody did ask for my guidance, I was going to give that to them, as I did with the other candidates, whether it was at the state delegate level or at the county level that came to me for guidance.
Right. You have a long and personal history with Larry Hogan. You worked with him in the Ehrlich administration. Now he's the governor. You were delegate. And one of the things he needed as governor was the idea that he could veto some bills and sustain some vetoes. Mm-hmm. So he was promoting some people to run for the Senate. You were one of them. You would have run anyway. But how did he do in that? Did he succeed in getting the votes he needs, or is he still short?
So, number one, I appreciate that Governor Hogan was willing to endorse me from the very start of my campaign. That made a difference. Number one, it did show that we had a relationship that actually goes back to the Governor Ehrlich's administration, where we both were in that administration. So he is both a former colleague and a friend. And I also knew from the very start that he has always been a friend to the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Right, and the ones that were running for political reasons or party reasons, he didn't endorse them the way he did you.
There was a difference, I think, as far as the fact that we had a long-standing working relationship and friendship. He did endorse some of the other candidates. As you know, there was an attempt to increase our numbers to 5 Republican state senators, so we could try to have, be more relevant in the veto process. We came up short. However, there are 2 new elected Republicans, Chris West and myself, and then there were others that replaced Republican senators coming in. So Jason Gallion and Jack Bailey from other parts of the state. Unfortunately, we lost Republican incumbent Senator Gail Bates. So the net gain was a +1, even though there's 2 Republican elected senators coming in.
Right.
I think
it's not so much the government wants to stop legislation. It's they have to maybe alter the legislation to make sure it survives a veto threat.
Well, that's right. But I think what it does is, even with the additional Republican senators and the ones that are coming in, I understand that my job is to fight for my district. And that's part of the conversation that I had with President Miller. Now that the, campaign's behind us, I'm focused on fighting for my district. And when these policies come up, whether it's environment, education, health, I will be looking to see how does this impact District 38? How does it impact Wycomico, Somerset, Wycomico counties? We have a major issue coming up with the recommendations coming from the Kerwin Commission.
It's going to be a mess, yes.
And what I'm encouraging is, why don't we break down the issues? Yes, we're going to have a list of recommendations that the Kerwin Commission, the Committee on Innovation and Excellence for Education, will make. And the concern is the price tag, and the concern is the accountability pieces, and that you cannot do all of this overnight. So I am encouraging my chairman, my colleagues, to say, why don't we break down the pieces, really look to see the true cost of the pieces. So the areas I've been focused on in the Kerwin Commission has been career, trades, technology education. It's been elevating teaching as a profession, which, yes, will include pay raises, but also includes elevating the profession in general, so that we view teaching the same way we view lawyers and accountants and doctors. The other area that I will be, razor focused on would be fair funding for the shore. I am very concerned that some of these education funding formulas are not fair to the shore, and I will be focused to make sure that when we look at whatever the funding levels are, that the shore receives its fair share.
Yeah, all during the last campaign locally, when I was talking to the local politicians about education, I almost want to say, don't even tell me your opinion, because it's not going to matter once the Kerwin Commission comes out and there's a whole different direction that we're all going to have to go in.
Well, I will continue to fight for local control, and that, again, will be that balancing act. And I think that so many of these issues, whether it's education or the environment or small business, my success has been in making a case for fairness. People asked before, you're in the minority, how will you be effective in getting something done for your district? And my response has been, well, I've already been effective if you look at my work as a member of the House of Delegates. In 2 key areas, I was able to go to the chairman of House Appropriations, Maggie McIntosh, and when you give the facts and say this funding formula for the community colleges is not fair to the shore community colleges like Warwick, and here's why it's not fair, and here's where some adjustments should be made so that there's equity. Well, that's not a partisan issue. That's based on having your facts, and it's based on fairness, and we were successful in making some adjustments to that funding formula. The same with our senior centers. It was the Mac Center, that they brought forward to say, we're a small senior center on the shore compared to the larger ones in Montgomery County and Prince George's County. So as a result, the funding formula there should be a bare minimum amount that a senior center on the shore should receive, even if our numbers are not, as far as participants, the same as Montgomery County and across the bridge. We came forward, we made the case for the funding formulas for the senior centers, and Chairman McIntosh agreed to make some adjustments there. That same approach I will take to the Senate. Again, I'm going to have all my facts, which is why I encourage all of your viewers to continue to stay engaged in the process. I depend on frontline information to make the strongest case for the district. So I continue to invite the various constituencies and organizations to come to Annapolis if they can. If they can't, we'll meet them down here. We'll make sure at least email us with updates and information. So I'm in the strongest position to make the strongest case for the shore.
Session starts when?
It starts officially sworn in on January 9th.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
And you'll have Team Carozza there around you?
I will have my parents hopefully right there on the Senate floor with me. So looking forward to that, and just looking forward to a good start.
At the Chamber of Commerce Forum, Economic Forum last week, the workforce development issue came up in every presentation. The lack of trained people for the jobs that are currently open. How aware are the people in the legislature about this problem? I guess it's an extension of education, but it really seems to be affecting business.
Exactly. I go back to answer your question to 4 years ago when I was first elected as a delegate. One of the first meetings I had was with some of our construction industry employers, and they basically, highlighted the shortage of a skilled workforce. And they made the case that these are high-tech, lucrative positions that are not being promoted in our school systems. So I started to work with the partnership. How can we bring more of our employers into the school systems, and how do we reach the students and the parents and the guidance counselors in middle school? So when we start to talk about careers in the future, we talk about being career ready. And yes, that may include college, but it might include an apprenticeship. It might include the military. It might include different tracks that college may be a piece of it instead of always just focusing on college and career ready. I think our terminology is important to be career ready, which may include college. Now, with that said, the opportunities on the shore, are exciting. For example, I have been talking about how we elevate healthcare as an economic driver on the shore. So we bring the pieces and the partners together. We have a shortage of primary doctors, specialists, healthcare specialties across the board. So we also have Memo Derica has highlighted the fact that we have a disproportionately higher aging population, which means the pressure on our healthcare services increase. So how do you take the fact that you have these needs, that we have to provide more of these services for an aging population, and the fact that we have these shortages and we want to keep our young people on the shore? I look at it as opportunity. So I was delighted to see the focus on workforce development in all sectors, whether it's addressing our teaching shortage on the shore, our healthcare shortages on the shore, our construction industry shortages on the shore, and how you bring these partners together. So again, I look at the challenges as opportunities and how to keep our young people, if they should choose to stay here, to have the opportunities here on the shore.
How do you sort of set yourself up to make sure that you're in communication constantly with our local politicians?
So that's a great question, and something that I've used this transition. I have been attending the county council, county commissioners meetings in all 3 counties before I go back to Annapolis on January 9th. Also with the municipalities as well. And what I'm trying to make sure is that before session starts, and once the whirlwind of the session gets underway, that again I have confirmed some of the priorities. I'm never going to overpromise, but I want to make sure that we're working together on their priorities, and that their issues can be worked and their priorities can be worked not only on the legislative track, which I always look to as the vehicle of last resort. Their issues often can be worked in the budget process, they can be worked in the oversight process, and they can be worked in the legislative process. Often you can talk about the possibility of introducing a piece of legislation that maybe the administration would rather handle administratively. So my approach would be, well, great, I'll hold off introducing a piece of legislation that we might not be able to control through the entire process if you'll work with us to see how we can address the concerns. Maybe it's a Maryland Department of Environment issue, and rather than introducing a piece of legislation, you're going to work that issue through the regulatory process. So I want to make sure that whether it's our municipalities, our county governments, our nonprofits, that the private sector, that number one, that going forward during this transition period, that we've captured the priorities, and that they also stay in touch with us throughout session.
Now that you're Senator Carozza, you're probably too busy to have time to talk to regular people, so there's no need to even try to reach out to you, I guess.
No, well, that's not true at all. And I take a lot of pride in my accessibility. As a matter of fact, one of the benefits of the Senate position is that there's a little bit more of a budget for staff. And I do put a premium on staff to be responsive to constituent concerns.
You've got great staff. They're terrific.
And, we, moving forward, obviously we'll be staffed up in Annapolis. I have a district representative, Pat Schroeder, who will continue doing the work she was doing as delegate, but now at the Senate level, covering all 3 counties. And I really encourage your viewers to send us those occasional emails, phone calls, and to make sure that they know there is an open-ended invitation. The Eastern Shore delegation meets on a weekly basis.
On Fridays.
When we're in session on Friday mornings. And that really is a good opportunity to see all of the members of the Eastern Shore delegation, as well as some of the other shore partners. So we maximize that meeting, and we
you're all there in that room, and you're happy to talk to people. It's a great way to run into somebody.
It is. And so want to remind your viewers of that open-ended invitation at all times.
And you'll accept our emails. You're more than happy if we email you with dumb questions.
Absolutely. I would look forward to receiving all of that feedback.
She's Mary Beth Carozza. She's our new state senator. We're so proud of her, and we're looking forward to her going to Annapolis in January and representing all of us. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.